Great, thank you. Well, welcome to our first call of the new year. As Sarah said, we're really excited to have a great speaker join us today. And with that, I would like to introduce Brenda Robinson. She's the US Navy's first African American female pilot, and it's going to share such a great story with us today. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background of her history. So Brenda is the first black woman to earn her wings of gold as a naval aviator, which is just amazing. Robinson was the 59th female to enter Naval Flight Training Program in September 1979 and became the 42nd to earn her wings on June the 6th, 1980. The first female to do so was Barbara Allen, and like Robinson, earned her wings at the Corpus Christi in Texas. Brenda was among one of the first women to make the aircraft carrier landing in June 1981. Goodness, I couldn't imagine. Just an outstanding leader with regards to being the first person to really lead with strong attitude. And a couple of the other things that I'd like to call out is she was one of the 5 women studying aeronautics of the 2,000 students while at Downing. She was one of the first black women in Downing's history to graduate with a degree in aeronautics. Which is just phenomenal. And what I would also just like to call out, upon completion of flight school in June of 1980, which is where she earned her wings and was the focus of this historic Navy event, I think I'm so excited to hear about Brenda's inspirational story, not only leading as a woman in her area, but also as the first black woman. I think being strong, taking the lead is something we can all learn from. And so with that, I'd like to hand over to Brenda to take us through her story.
Well, good afternoon. This is wonderful, and I really do appreciate this opportunity to talk to all of you. And I want to say that I have about 41 years of experience flying airplanes. I've flown about 12 different airplanes, and I'm still flying now as a flight instructor at a full motion simulator that I've called Flyride here in the Concord region area. But before I even started in the military, which is where I've received all those accolades, I was also flying in college. I got my degree in aeronautics, and I also achieved my private pilot's license. And in order to get into the military, into Aviation Officers Candidate School, which I'll talk about a little later, the women that were being selected, I was one of 10 in the entire nation being selected that year. That was about 78 when I was a senior. And as one of 10 going into the system, I had to have not only a science background, but I also had to have, I should say, a science degree. I also had to have a science background. A flight background, but I had my private pilot's license. Now, the gentleman that I was competing against at the same time simply needed to graduate college. You have to be a college graduate to be an officer in the Navy, in the military. So I was already being selected or pulled out because of my unique position. However, I will say that history kind of materialized around me. I did not chase after that, but as a matter of fact, I even evaded the title. So they were telling me ahead of time, before I actually achieved the goal, do you know you are going to be the first black woman pilot ever in the history of the Navy? And I'm like, well, that's exciting, except for the fact that I had not achieved that yet, and I could be distracted by thinking that this is something great and wonderful, and then if I were to drop out, nobody in history would ever know my name. So my job was not to think that this was going to be some great, wonderful deal that's going to happen to me, but it was my understanding that I had better work very hard if I really planned on making this goal. Now, the other problem is I did evade the title, because once I did receive my wings and I did get into the military Navy and I was flying, I found out that when the press found out that I was somebody special, they would come there with their microphones and their cameras, and they would chase me all over the squadron, and my counterparts would look at that and go, now, wait a minute. Obviously she didn't work as hard as we did to get here. I'm sure that the system was motivated in her favor. Why is she getting all this attention? So I started going to the CEOs of all my squadrons, and there was a number of them, and I said to them, you can do what you want to do about this situation, but this is what I have achieved, and I have found that it's much easier if nobody knows it. So I wanted them to, and I believe this to be true, I wanted to be judged on the content of my character and not the color of my skin or what the press had to say and what they were going to do and how they riled up the guys that were around me. So it was in my best interest to keep it quiet. Now here's the funny part is now I come out, I go, ta-da, I'm here. I want to start a camp. I want to do these things for young people. And everybody's like, well, who are you? I was like, well, I did this in history. And so now I'm actually starting from the beginning in order to show people what I'm doing. So then I have two companies, actually, Successful Attitude and Aviation Camps of the Carolinas. And the aviation camps is strictly for the youth. It's a nonprofit organization, but I have to tell you that adults want to attend this camp as well because it is really so much fun. It's jam-packed, and I even talk about that a little bit later. But with aviation comes another requirement that most young people and students think that they have to have. And you look at an aviator and you know that they have a special kind of character in order to become an aviator. And I have to say, well, maybe that's not really true as you think it is, but I support trying to get them to understand how that character portion of it works. Because Brenda is anti everything that looks like a naval aviator and an airline pilot. Physically, racially, temperamentally, because I am a shy, type B, introvert person. And if you don't believe, you probably won't believe that because I try to do just the opposite. But it is a true statement that when I meet teenagers and kids, they kind of look at it as like, that's not a job that I could do because I don't have the temperament for it. I see people that do that and they look like they really belong in there. And I'm trying to explain to them, well, look at me. And I have been able to achieve that. Yeah, sure, it's hard work. And that's only part of it. The other part of it is seeing yourself doing that job, and that's like just for success, that kind of quotient. But STEM is not a scholarly program. If you understand how STEM works, and everyone thinks that you have to be a brainiac in order to get into the program. That's not true. What it is you build up your knowledge base by incremental understandings, and you build that up to a point where you eventually appear to civilians that all of what you're doing is super complicated, but all you have done is just built one step at a time. What I have done also is you'll notice that I've been in non-traditional interviews a number of times. The Huffington Post, the CNN, they contacted me and they go, well, you've been in non-traditional fields. Why don't you talk to us about how that was and what are the adversities and whatnot? So I've had those conversations, and you'll be able to see that on my my successfulattitude.com/media page, because that's where I put all of that to let people know what it is I do, how I did it, how I was able to achieve it. Now I go around the country and I talk to adults and I do motivational discussions with them at keynote addresses or graduation ceremonies. But I say the exact same thing to teenagers. I want them to see the same kind of motivation that I try to put through, because I still think like a 13-year-old, and that is actually the key to my success. I try to make sure that they understand, yeah, you could do something that is such a cool career, but in this career, you are able to be yourself. You do not have to be someone else in order to do this career, and then I'm going to change all that when I talk about confidence building. But I wanted them to know that, yes, I am shy. Yes, I am a type B personality, and I'm an introvert, and yet I still am able to make all of this work for me. So now this is here, what I want to tell you is really the secret to my success. And part of that is being a good officer. I have like 3 things I want to tell you about that I learned just from being a Navy officer. But I want to tell you, You as your character building, you can take the high road, you can take the low road. Both of those would get you the success that you're trying to achieve, but only the high road is going to feel satisfying. Now, when I was in Aviation Officers Candidate School, which is the same thing. You remember the movie Officer and a Gentleman? That's Hollywood. That's not really it, but that's the closest thing I could do to get you to what Aviation Officers Candidate School was. It's a 90-day wonder. They bring us in from all over the nation, and in my case, the 10 women that they chose that year, they got to go to Aviation Officers Candidate School, but there were only 3 in my class. There were 6 in the other class. We started out with 32 people in my class, and we started out with the 3 women. When we ended up, we had 17 students in that class. These are the people that were going to become officers. 3 of us women. The women all made it through. This is a tough course, and I didn't understand it at the time, but they put this together because they're looking for the whiners and the complainers and those that would actually just cut and run and not do the job. They would get themselves into a position where they were going to say, this is too hard. They would be overwhelmed by circumstances and decide that they can't handle it. Aviation Officers Candidate School was the program to find these people and very pleasantly show them the door and send them out, because what they wanted to have left were all of those folks that were ready to handle an emergency. And that's the point. You get to a point where you have an emergency to handle. You need to handle the emergency and then talk about, what you thought about it. The last thing we want to do in any sort of important job is to start to go, oh my gosh, what do I do? That's not what we do when we have a situation. What we want to see in a military officer is somebody who's going to take charge and do what it needs to be done, and then worry about it. I mean, I can get the shakes after I get done with an emergency, and I didn't have too many of those. But that's what they were looking for. I didn't know that. All I know is that it was doggone hard, very, very difficult. But the dropout rate was quite high, and so now I'm left because I'm in with the military because I have been able to achieve and prove that I can handle these situations. Now here's some other things that will leave you in high regard. If you are in a group, say a networking group, or talking around the water cooler, or however that works. One thing you don't want to do, and this is kind of like an etiquette thing for military officers, you never talk about politics, religion, or women. Now, back when I was going through there, women was the thing that they had to tell guys not to talk about, in mixed company. So if you are in a conversation, it will always roll around to politics, and it will often roll around to religion. And I always try to stay away from that. And when people start to realize that, that's nice for you to start talking about, but I think I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about something else. I'm not going to go in there. I'm not going to jump down that rabbit hole with you and get caught up in that conversation. When people start to understand that that's the way you think, then all of a sudden you are now held in higher regard, and they have a little bit more respect for you, knowing that you're not going to go there. And the other thing that I learned from being in the military is I had to run a lot of divisions. I had young people working for me. Well, not necessarily young people, but other military folks, enlisted folks working for me. And one thing I had to do is if I saw that there was a problem or an issue, again, no complaining, no whining. I had to maybe take this situation to my commanding officer and go, all right, this is the problem. This was what needs to be taken care of. But my commanding officer doesn't want to hear from me unless when I come to them, I'm also bringing, here is my answer to what would take care of this problem. So in other words, you can whine and complain all you want, but if you sit down and decide what would it take to fix this, and then take that to the person who is your superior or however you work that system out, that makes you the kind of person that actually I want to hire. I want to hire people just like that all the time. Yeah, we got a problem. Yeah, you're right in the trenches and you know what's going on. So what is the fix for that? And if you have that answer, you are cut above all others. Now, here's another thing that I want to talk about. That was my officer upbringing. I like to tell people that I can teach you how to read minds. And I ask the kids all the time in my camp, who would want to learn who would want to know how to read minds? Well, all the hands go up. They don't even understand how in the world could I teach them how to read minds, and it's very easy. I take now a mirror and I turn the mirror around and face it to them, and I said, okay, what do people see when they see you, especially for the first time? What book are they reading when they look at you? And I want them to understand that what people see in them, whether if they were like I am, shy, introverted, quiet, that just looks like something they could chew on. People just love to chew on people that they know won't fight back. So I'm asking my students, how about if you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, I got that. I mean, convince yourself. You look in the mirror and go, I got this. I can handle this. And there's another thing I want you to also always remember to do is when you walk into an establishment, I own this. This belongs to me. What do you think Oprah does when she walks into an establishment? Does she go and run over to the food table or go stand at the wall and pull out her phone? No, she walks straight into the middle. You know, I even say, you know, you got high heels on, use them. Clickety clackety clickety clack down the hallway, right? I am in charge, and I want to cause a scene. I want people to notice me, and I want people to turn around and see that I am not afraid of anything. And here's the trick. Everybody's afraid of things. We're all afraid. But I want my young people, which I wish I had learned this when I was a teenager, I want them to pretend, and it takes a little while, pretend that you are confident. I know that you think that you have to grow into confidence. It's not true. What you have to do is pretend to be confident, just like dress for success. You dress the way the job that you want to have. Well, you have to do the confidence thing too. A friend of mine and I were walking together, and he asked me one day, just point blank, why are you always looking down? Why was I looking down? I don't want to trip. I don't want to fall. My body language said that I thought that I was invisible. And I want to walk into a crowd of people, but they're not going to see me because I'm not looking at them. Well, when you walk into a group of folks, their eyes all go towards you. And I tell the kids, that's when you take inventory. You do not look down. You look at every one of their eyes. You just look all the way around the room and check out their eyes, and their eyes will drop because now they know that they cannot intimidate you. You are not the person that they thought that they could just tell you, that they can just come upon you and start making decisions about you based on your demeanor. Teachers will tell you, and we learned this when we were growing up, stand up straight, sit up straight. And I said, why are the teachers always telling you that? It's like, I don't know, but I tell you what, if I had two young men standing here in front of me, both of them dressed exactly the same, I would ask you, which one is the one that is rich? What is the one who is not rich? Tell me the difference. And the kids all have the answer. The answer is, oh, well, that one's more confident. Why is he confident? Well, he's standing up straight, or he looks like he's got it all together. And I go, that's the trick. That's the trick for all of us, adults as well as students. We have to, and I learned this as an adult, we have to pretend like we have got this all figured out. I got this. I own this. This is what we do whenever we walk into an establishment. And I could go on for a little bit, so I'm going to have to go on to the next item. But I wanted you to understand, when you read minds, they are reading you. And bullies, coworkers, they're kind of the same people. Bullies are experts at reading people, experts at it. So you need to be an expert at it as well, because when you start to look confident, people start to give you space and respect. They don't know what you're thinking until you open your mouth, but nonetheless, they give you respect just on general principle. Now, let me go on to the next one. Brace for impact. I'd like you to also always know that no matter what it is you're trying to achieve, if it's a class, if it's a job, if it's a relationship, all things that you have to deal with will always come up against this brick wall, and you have to make a decision. Are you going to cut and run, which now you already know there's a Navy officer. We do not whine, we do not complain, we do not gossip, and we do not run away. So are you going to go around or over or through that wall? Are you going to take charge and take care of this problem, or are you going to not do anything? And you know that there's a saying, if we're easy, anybody could do it. Well, there's a brick wall put in front of everybody all the time to see whether or not you're even worthy to get to the goal. You know you want this goal, but if you get to the point where it's too hard, then you might give up. And here's the point. If you always know that there is going to be a brick wall, you can't be surprised by it. So when it comes, you go, okay, I knew this was going to come. Now I have to do something. I have to either go get help from somebody. I have to go read a book on this subject in order to get through it. People who have experienced stuff in their lives, they write it down, they put it in a book because they want everybody to know how to fix this problem. The answers are everywhere. There are mentors, there are all sorts of people ready to help you. But so doing it yourself is not necessary. But when you hit that brick wall, whatever it is, your mindset is you're going to go through it, around it, over, or whatever it has to do, because that proves that you are now ready to receive the rewards of having that particular job or relationship or school class. And so while I say that, I want to mention one more thing about this. Mentors. You are now a mentor. Regardless of what your job is, you are in a position to see somebody else who could possibly be struggling over an issue or a situation where you have the answer for it. So all you have to do is go, come on, we're going to go have some coffee, we're going to have a meeting, and I'm going to help you through this. I'm going to tell you, you would say different words. I don't know how you would do it, but it is your job to be a mentor. High tide floats all boats? These other people are not your competitors. They are not going to take your job away from you. If you really care about our nation and our folks and our young people all gathering and actually becoming better, and spreading that wealth of better and intelligence throughout the land, we have to, each and every one of us, reach back and pull somebody out with us and say, let me help you with this, because I know you're struggling here and I have the answers. Why reinvent the wheel? Make it so that it happens, and you will find somebody who will help you as well. That is the whole point. We all must be mentors. There's no reason to keep this information to ourselves and not pass it on to others, because that's what the rest of us and all young people will need. So that's what I wanted to say about the core part of what I'm standing on. I do talk about in more detail in other opportunities. But the point that I'd like to say is that I had a dream, and the aviation camps of the Carolinas was my opportunity to take the fact that I started in one area, which was actually air traffic control. I was afforded the opportunity as a person who thought aviation was cool. I didn't think airplanes were cool. I thought getting on an airplane and going somewhere was cool. But I didn't see myself actually doing that, because there's no job or, when I was a teenager, nothing actually came to me to say this. But one day I was in a program that allowed me to go to an airport, and that airport took me on a field trip, and I saw air traffic control. Air traffic control, when I saw the tower and I looked out over the land and I saw the airplanes and I saw these scopes and they had airplanes on them and everything was moving around. This was way before video games, people. The Pac-Man hadn't even come out, let me tell you. So this was a video game of enormous proportion. I saw that and I was totally in love, and I said, I'm going to be an air traffic controller. Where do I go to college for that? Well, if you know anything about air traffic control, you don't have to go to college for that, but that's another story. Anyway, I said, where can I go to college? And that's how I ended up going to Dowling. Well, while I was at Dowling, I got into this program and that program. I ended up start to fly airplanes, got my private pilot's license. That turned me into a completely different direction. And off I went running into flying airplanes for a living. I still love air traffic control, but the point was that air traffic control tower was a gateway to my aviation experience and career. So I decided that most people do not know what really goes on in aviation, and they certainly don't know all the cool jobs that are available that support aviation, and air traffic control was one of them. So I put together this program to let kids know that that not only air traffic control, but what all kinds of opportunities for them to see. So I started the dream by knowing what it is I started at, knowing that this was the spark that started everything, and now I'm bringing it to all of the kids in the region. And I've put on this camp in New Jersey, and I'll be going to St. Louis. So it's not just a Carolina dream. It is, what can I do to get kids to come outside of themselves? And as a 13-year-old brain, I know what makes it fun. So it's a very busy day, but I want to make sure that they understand I can make this dream and then put it and make it into something, and it's an accomplishment. Now, one of those folks that will say the journey is not all that interesting. It's hard work, but I'm telling you, the end result and the success is absolutely so worth it. So let me tell you just a little bit about what I say about the camp itself. I get a great pleasure in wrapping kids around my little finger. So as a result, I've been able to create my very own aviation camps to the world. Aviation Camps of the Carolinas is a nonprofit corporation that allows me to spend a full, exciting day at our local airports teaching many innovative concepts. I'm looking for youth organizations, church groups, parents, schools, and overall communities who see the value in what I share and are looking for a new and effective way to reach young people. Grades 4 through 8 and 9 through 12. Now, if that sounds like a goal or someone's you know, I encourage you to reach out to me. These are just a small point, a portion of the kinds of things that I talk about. And even though I love aviation, I love confidence building even more. So that's just pretty much all of what I have for today. I will take questions if you have them.
I will go ahead and unmute the audience. Who has a question for Brenda today? Don't be shy.
It's Lindsay. I can ask you a question. I love your comment about, be like Oprah. Mine is be like Michelle Obama. I always go, what would Michelle Obama do?
Yeah.
How would she walk into the room? Do you have any other woman mentors who you look upon who have traits that you truly admire?
Well, just like you said, Michelle Obama, Oprah, but I kind of see this as it's always about where they get their confidence center from, and I did not actually watch people and know what they were doing. What I did myself. I used to always go to meetings wearing my airline uniform because I thought, well, they would see me in my uniform and they would say, well, what's that? And they would come up to me and say, are you a flight attendant? And I go, no, I'm not a flight attendant. I'm a pilot. I'm wearing pilot stripes and a pilot hat and pilots, all that kind of stuff. But I thought that was the only way that I could strike up interest in people, that they would look at me and see that. And what I found out was that I could actually dress in civilian clothes, walk in like I own the joint, just like the people that I admire. I must be somebody. And they looked at me and they go, she is somebody, I don't know who, but let me go and find out. And and the people and would make it so much easier for me to talk to folks. And I was like wowed by that. I was just like, that's funny, that's interesting, that now I can walk around in regular clothes, but I'm acting like I'm more confident. And that was making it a cooler and more usable way of contacting and meeting people and getting to know them and getting their respect before they even had the opportunity to talk to you. And about reading minds, you can see in their eyes immediately the flash of what they think about you. And no matter how they try to hide it, you can always read a person. And that Lie to Me show on TV, I really love that, because it really does show you how people are what they're thinking, and you can see that immediately when you're meeting someone.
Here's a question.
There's a question in the window. Brenda, did you have a situation where you actually needed to confront a male peer who might have doubted you got where you are on your own merit? If so, how did you handle it?
Well, they doubted that I got there on my own merit because they don't know anything about me. They don't know where I went to college. They don't know what I achieved. They don't know that I had to have a better credentials, before even being picked up in the military than any of my male counterparts. When I went into the military, I call them the dinosaurs. That there are dinosaurs that are still out there, and they're a little senior to me, but they really, really, really hated women pilots. So the funny part about that is, here I come along now. I'm a black woman pilot. And I thought I saw in their thought process as they're standing around with their arms folded saying, damn, which one should we hate her for? I don't know. Let me think about this for a second. You know what? I'm going to pick women. We hate you because you're a female, you know? And it's like, okay, fine. And it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh because it's not about what they think of. It's not about me. I have not lost anything in this transaction. What it does is it lets me look at them and say, you are insecure. You are a loser. You're the ones who are having all the problems with me, and that makes me turn around and smile at them because I'm laughing at them, not with them. You know, so I don't take this I don't take this to heart that somebody dislikes me because they've looked at me and go, snap decision. They watch television. They know everything they need to know about the, black women, the black race, so they look at me as a female pilot and go, we know that they lowered the standards for you to get in. I am certain of that. And instead of me trying to argue with them and trying to get them to understand what I'm doing, my focus is eat my dust. Watch me be really awesome and great. And even after I leave, people are going to be talking about me, and eventually you're going to hear this and you're going to be grumpier, but I'm going to be laughing. So it doesn't really affect me that much. Bravo, thank you. Yeah, it's, and I'd like to tell all folks, it's not what the person is saying to you. I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. Remember that? That's the elementary school stuff. That is so true. People look at me and they go, well, I don't like you. That's right out the gate. I don't like you. And I'm thinking to myself, not a problem. That's not an issue with me.
So I'm going to ask a question. So this is Sally, by the way. So you talked about the fact that you're a type B.
Yeah.
But yet you do all kinds of type A types of things. Mm-hmm. So how do you bridge that gap?
That is my acting. I had to practice that. I looked at myself giving a speech or talking to folks, and my excitement factor is when I see something that's really great, I go, oh, that's awesome. So if you looked at me and you're seeing me, you're thinking, is she crying or what? What's going on with that? And so I had to realize that I had to be a little bit more flamboyant with my gestures. And if you were to see me here talking to Sally, my hands are all over the place because I talk louder. My ears cannot take how loud I talk because a person who is shy talks softly. And so a person who's trying not to be shy has to talk louder, and that screaming sound inside their ears is too much. You got to practice that. That doesn't come naturally. So I understand how that being a type B allows me to read people and understand what they're really thinking. I get to hear what's in their brains shooting straight out their mouth. So it's kind of like I'm reading their mind, but I get to stand back and see and hear what people are saying and thinking. They might not think that I know what's going on. They think I'm naive. They may think that I'm stupid. But they're going to go ahead and tell me what they think, whether no matter what, as a type B. But when I get my opportunity to speak, I try to be a little bit more grandiose at it because in Hollywood terms, it just seems like when I look at this on a video, I'm like, well, I need to, try to express my feelings in a way that other people will come on board and feel that energy at the same time. So I don't have the energy. I just make it the energy, but I get so used to it that it's fun. So now I can do this with ease, but it's not natural. It is not normal for me, and it's not normal for a whole bunch of people, but it doesn't matter. That's why I like the clickety clack of the heels walking down the hallway. People either jump out of my way or they all turn around to see who this is, and then I get to do the shoulders back, head up routine. So.
Brenda, there's another question in the window from Barbara. I love the questions, Barbara. Thank you. Along the same lines, I hear kids who want to go into certain fields like science or engineering and say, but I'm not really good at math. I like what you said when you learn incrementally. Any additional advice for kids who self-select out because they think they're not whiz like their peers?
Yeah, I asked the students, I go, do you think that I had to be a genius in order to do this job? And they all shake their head, yes. Obviously you're a genius. You had to be really smart at this. I had difficulties with everything, and math wasn't an area that I was, I wasn't having trouble with math when I was in high school, but I mean, that was not my first go-to. So when I got into college, I hit physics. Physics required calculus. Calculus was kicking my butt, right? So now what do? I go to a mentor. I go to somebody else and go, help me, help me, help me, help me get through this, because I would never have gotten through that on my own. And I was not smart enough to figure it out. Maybe if I had a couple of years, but the class is only a semester, right? I needed to get that calculus down. I needed to get my physics in gear. I wasn't good at physics until I got through the first half of the class of the semester, and then finally it all started to come together. But I had to study really hard, going out on the weekends, hanging out and doing stuff the other kids did. That was not my opportunity. I didn't get to do that. And it's not that I worked all the time. It's just that I couldn't relax, because I knew that I was behind everybody else. So I worked really, really hard so that I would look like I was ahead of everybody else. I mean, it's the smoke and mirrors kind of thing. But that's what it is. You don't start out being brilliant. And that's what the funny thing about STEM is. When I take people into the cockpit of a 767, I go, look at all these switches, look at all these lights, look at all these buttons, whatnot. And they go, what? How do you know all of this? And I go, one switch at a time. I learned one switch. Figure that one out. What did I get next to? And then I learned the next switch. And that's how you learn anything that has to do with STEM. What is that?
Who else has a question for Brenda? Oh, Barbara, go ahead.
No, this is Sally. We're just reading the comments.
To overcome stereotypes, a Marine and airline pilot to achieve these great things. And here's the interesting thing. I don't think that it's great things that I achieved. I think that I came along at the right time. And you want to watch a dinosaur's head explode? Say affirmative action. Kaboom! It's like I did not know when I started college that should I want to go into the aviation community with the credentials that I was going to come out with, that there was going to be somebody with their arms folded standing at this great big door that says, "You're not welcome." But when I was graduating in 1978, they had opened those doors maybe a year or two before that. So I'm not one of the first women, but I'm really close. So they had already opened that door, and I got there, and I'm like, right on through the door. And everybody's like, well, wait a minute, excuse me, are you supposed to be here? So the stereotype was they didn't understand why I was there, and I didn't understand what the issue was. Right. My being there was because I thought that I could fly an airplane, which I had already demonstrated that I could. Mm-hmm. So the stereotype was squarely on the folks that were thinking this was odd. I thought this was normal. This was my normal.
Great.
Any last questions? All right, well, Lindsay, I'll turn it back over to you.
I have one question,
yes.
Sarah. Sorry, you can get off mute. I just want to know, I'm assuming, given the male-dominated area you were in, that you did run into some bias. And how did you handle it when you ran into it?
Well, I guess I'm 20/20 hindsight is pretty good, but when I was in it, I was quiet. I was bite my tongue. I was don't say anything, don't rock the boat, kind of thing. And in the military, the funny thing is, I got low grades for my temperament, so to speak, because they really wanted an officer that would shout and order folks around and demand respect. And I'm the kind of person that, even I had young people working under me, I would grab them by their little ear or pinch them and take them into a room, shut the door, and have a very heart-to-heart conversation that said, you will do this. This is what I promise to do on your behalf. This is what I promise to do if you really totally screw this up, and then go back out there and do your job. And so, but my superiors did not appreciate that sort of female, I guess, leadership, as opposed to I should give them, bark at somebody and dress them down in front of others. I never learned the ability to do that. I always was worried that my 13-year-old me would be stolen by being in the military, and so I managed to get out intact the way I did things, but it was not exactly what my superiors was. So I always got a grade B for that particular aspect of my life. And you only get a small grade, like a 2%, and Maria will tell you, you only get a small percent of your aviation abilities. All the rest of it is, how are you a manager? How are you a leader? That's what we're supposed to be, training and ascribing to in the military. So yeah, I could look back and say, oh yeah, I should be bold and I like to be all of these things, but essentially, my way of dealing with folks and issues and getting the job done required that I did it the way I wanted to do it, which was not necessarily the officer way of doing it. So.
So how do you think that impacted your, you already said it impacted you in terms of how you were perceived and graded. Mm-hmm. So I guess it would be, this is kind of a comment question for you, but would it be safe to say that the environment wasn't open to other ways of doing it rather than the traditional male way? And so it's remarkable that you went as far as you did given that constraint.
Well, and normally when a young first time out of the gate officer, just became an ensign in the Navy, they go to their first squadron, they're given a division, they have all these people that work under them, and they also have some senior folks in that division, maybe even up to a senior chief. That senior chief is required, I guess, the care and feeding of the brand new officer. That brand new officer is the same age as the young people that they're leading. But the senior chief will, like a mentor, looks at this person and goes, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. Well, when the females came along, the senior chiefs are like, I do not know how to work with the girl. I don't know what to say to her. I don't know, or I don't want to give her all of my secrets. So I essentially did not have access to that information, which I believe the women officers now do. And I'm very happy about that. So I had to actually figure it out on my own, which left up to me, that's difficult to do. It was impossible to do, but I didn't know that's how the world was working. So yeah, essentially, I should have been a better, more knowledgeable leader, but it's not just something that I learned in school. It's something that you are sort of mentored into, which I didn't get it. I don't think I got much of that.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that also happens in corporate America, the lack of mentoring because of the different styles.
Mm-hmm.
So when faced with a difficult situation when you felt attacked or marginalized, how did you have emotional response?
Attacked or marginalized, again, I just look at a person and go, I don't even know what you're talking about, because it's not about what you say to me. You obviously are not knowledgeable, so therefore you don't know anything about me. So you may go on and talk about me, and I cannot have a discussion and an argument with you and somehow I'm going to make you believe that you are wrong and I am right. It doesn't work that way. Human nature doesn't work that way. Whatever you talk about around your dinner room, your dinner table, that's what you grow up believing and understanding. I cannot come along now after all those years and start to tell you, well, you're wrong, and let me show you how you're wrong and that you're going to agree with me. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Heather's trying to get to is the emotional stress of that, and how do you kind of tap that down, or in the moment I would cry, but in the moment what do you do to kind of as a coping mechanism to handle, or what did you use when those things came up from an emotional perspective?
Now I can kind of laugh, and today, stuff like that will happen, and I will either look at somebody and smile because they're being an idiot, before, I would just kind of keep it to myself, not get angry and all that kind of stuff, which was not not a way of actually working and dealing with the situation. But back then, if I had the attitude that I have now, I would find it more comical than something that I would be upset about. Really, I don't see that as a way that I would deal with it anymore. And most of the women that I have seen come up and go into the aviation programs and whatnot, they are more and more confident. Therefore, what you're talking about is not affecting them either. It's bouncing right off of them. And I'm very, very excited to see that they can walk around and have a conversation with other women and get this good information that they need to be good leaders. I mean, that's all we're all trying to do. When I was in the military, you were very sitting on the fence of being super sweet, nice, motherly, or being a total B. Total, and there was no in between. And they're going to hate you for whichever one you chose. That's just the way it was going to be. So we were in a tough spot. I don't feel as though it's that way. And who are real supporters are young boys who grew up with women who were in either non-traditional jobs or just out in the executive community. They don't understand what the issues are. I mean, it's not that they're going to jump in and defend me, but they were the ones who will say, they will go to work and not be the kind of person that's grumpy and upset about a woman being in a position that they have to work with.
So we have a question from Simona. Hi, Brenda. Having gone through several overseas long deployments, Air Force wives, do you have any suggestions with keeping my chin up while managing my career, kids, and the dose of anxiety?
Oh, it's nonstop. You're overseas. You're by yourself. You're not in a place where you get that support from the other women. And I'm thinking that the online community is how you get that support that you need. One day I was landing in Kuwait. And I was on the radio because that was not my landing, but when the other guy was landing, that particular one, I was on the radio. We land in Kuwait. We're taxiing in. We're bringing them supplies and gear and all that stuff that they need. Well, when I talked to the ground controller, he wouldn't answer me. And so I'm trying to get him to tell us where he wants us to park. Here's a big old airplane. We're burning gas, right? And so where do you want us to park? No answer. All right, I'm calling you again. Where do you want us to park? No answer. So the guy that was flying on the left seat, he goes to pick up the mic. He was a senior to me, and I reached over and I started beating him about his arm to let go of that mic. Because if this man wants to not talk to us, the stuff that we have on here that's for them, then we can all sit the hell out here and wait for you to get around to it. And so what happens is his superior came on the radio and told the girl where to park the airplane, So it's crazy the way that we're treated and women are treated throughout the planet. And it still boggles my mind. I don't get it, but it's still out there. And I just cannot see. I'm not trying to be confrontational because I'm not going to hang out and stay there and build a house there. I just want to be able to do my job. That's why I was trained to do my job, and that's all I want to do is be able to go to work and do the job I was trained to do. And I'm not going to let anybody else stop me from doing that.
Great, thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Brenda. I'm going to hand it back to Lindsay now.
Awesome.
Well,
thank you. Thanks, Sarah, for keeping us all on track, and thanks, Brenda, for a great discussion, and everyone who contributed for questions.
Very good. Well, thank you.
I did want to call out a couple of things which really landed with me, which was, be yourself, stay true to your character, which is something I hold really true. Take charge. And stay out of politics, religion, gender discussions, and pick what you want to be engaged in and be pretty selective of that. And so thank you. I appreciate your time. You've obviously had a big impact from all the questions that we've had, and we truly appreciate your contribution. And so for the rest of our members, I'm really wanting to showcase what we have coming up. We're really excited. Our February session will be Margie Wells. She's actually Australian. She's going to be talking about closing the gender gap with confidence and leading with confidence, which is a little bit, how we spoke about, being your Oprah or being your Michelle Obama. And then we have a great speaker in March with regards to the growth of women leaders. How are we equipping ourselves and supporting ourselves to be leaders in this challenging industry that we work in? And so thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for your contributions. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you all in February. So thank you.
Thank you.